You've heard the name Knights Templar, right? Warrior monks from the Crusades. But what if that whole story was just a cover? What if their real mission had nothing to do with protecting pilgrims and everything to do with finding lost technology? Technology that could literally change the world. That's the wild legend we're diving into today. So here's the breakdown. On one hand, you have the official history, these really devout soldiers, protecting people in a dangerous land. But then there's the secret history. This version says they were actually an elite team sent on a mission to dig up artifacts from some super advanced ancient civilization, a civilization that sounds a whole lot like Atlantis. Okay, so how in the world does a bunch of monks end up hunting for ancient tech? Well, this legend says their real purpose didn't start in Jerusalem. Nope, it began far away in Constantinople, with a secret society that knew things the rest of the medieval world had totally forgotten. The story goes that this French nobleman, Hugh de Pans, he's the guy who would go on to found the Templars, was basically summoned by this mysterious group. And they tell him this story that must have sounded completely insane, a tale of a global civilization with almost godlike powers that had just vanished thousands of years earlier. I mean, just try to put yourself in his shoes, hearing this in the 12th century. This wasn't just some powerful kingdom they were describing. This was a society that had completely mastered nature. They could make it rain to stop a drought, move huge stones with their minds, and talk to someone across the world in a split second. To a medieval knight, this wouldn't sound like technology. It would sound like straight-up magic. So with this unbelievable story rattling around in their heads, de Pans and his knights get their real mission. The Brothers of the East tell them that pieces of this Atlantean power, actual working devices, were still out there, and they knew exactly where to look. Hidden away in secret vaults, deep under the ruins of King Solomon's temple. And here's the genius part. Their public job was the perfect cover. So while a few Templars are up top, getting famous for being these holy protectors, the rest of the guys were digging. Secretly, day and night, tunneling underneath one of the most sacred places on Earth, all to find the power of a lost world. And the legend says they found it. And we're not just talking about dusty old relics. We're talking about objects of incredible power. They supposedly found not one, but 6 Arks of the Covenant, plus all these other legendary items. The key here is that, in this story, these aren't just things to pray to. They're pieces of functioning otherworldly technology. So you're probably wondering, how did this tech even work? Well, the secret ingredient was a substance they called manna. The Templars supposedly figured out that manna was the special white powder you could get from gold or even from bones, and it acted like a superconductor. Think of it as a perfect battery that never runs out. It could power devices for healing, for levitation, for limitless, clean energy. This, they believed, was the real secret behind the Ark of the Covenant's legendary power. But as incredible as those artifacts were, they weren't the most dangerous thing the Templars found down there, not even close. They found something else, something that didn't threaten armies or kings, but the entire foundation of belief in their world. I mean, what's more powerful than a machine that gives you endless energy? A secret that can shatter a religion? It wasn't some golden tablet or an ancient machine. It was an ossuary, just a simple stone box used to hold human bones. But what was written on this box, and what was inside, well, it revealed a truth so explosive, it could bring the whole Catholic Church crashing down. Get this. The legend claims they found the bones of John the Baptist, Jesus, and Mary Magdalene, all buried right there together. And the real bombshell? They also found the bones of children that Mary had with both men. If this was real, it was physical proof that Jesus was a mortal man who lived and loved and had a family. And that completely demolishes the idea of divinity the entire church was built on. So this discovery supposedly led the Templars to secretly embrace Gnosticism. Now, Gnosticism is this belief system that says you don't need a priest or a pope or a church to find God, that divine knowledge is already inside you. Now, in a time when the church had total control over who got into heaven, this idea wasn't just heresy. It was a full-blown revolution. So, picture this. The Templars now have 2 world-ending secrets: ancient tech that could build a paradise, and historical proof that could destroy the most powerful institution on the planet. And with all that hidden power, they built an empire that made them a threat to, well, pretty much everyone. They basically became masters of money and logistics. They invented the first international banking system, a totally game-changing idea. You could drop off your gold in Paris, get a coded piece of paper, and then cash it in safely in Jerusalem. This made them unbelievably rich and powerful, like their own country that answered to no king. But all that success put a huge target on their backs. The King of France owed them a ton of money, so he plotted with the Pope to take them down and grab their wealth. But the legend says the Templars saw it coming. The night before the infamous arrests on Friday the 13th, their entire fleet of ships just vanished from port, taking every single artifact and all the treasure with them. So while the world saw their destruction, the story goes it was actually a perfectly planned escape. The order didn't die out, it just went underground. According to this legend, they just blended in, creating or influencing new groups to keep their mission going. In Scotland, where the Pope couldn't touch them, they supposedly became the Freemasons. In Portugal, they just changed their name to the Knights of Christ. They even say they made it to the Americas hundreds of years before Columbus, not as invaders, but as trading partners. So what do we do with all this? I mean, the story is so massive, so unbelievable, it's really easy to just write it off as fiction. But here's the thing, the legend doesn't stop in the 1300s. The people who believe this claim the order is still around, and that its incredible treasures are still out there, just waiting for the right moment to come back into the light. A lot of this modern version of the story comes from a guy named Timothy Hogan, who actually claims to be the Grand Master of a modern-day Templar order. He says, flat out, that the artifacts are real, they're safe in hidden vaults, and that the Order's one and only job has always been to get humanity ready for when they can finally be released. And let's just take a second to remember what's at stake here. This isn't just about some old historical secret. The promise of this lost tech is a total game changer for all of us. We're talking about a world with free energy, an end to poverty, and maybe even an end to war itself. It's the utopian dream they were sworn to protect. So, in the end, what do you believe? Is there really a secret order out there, guarding technology that could turn Earth into a paradise? Or is this just an amazing story, a powerful myth that speaks to our deepest hopes for a better world? Maybe the greatest treasure isn't some artifact in a vault, but the story itself, the idea that a better world isn't just a dream, but something that has always been within our reach.